My name is Rafael. I'm from the Federal University of Pernambuco, and I will be presenting the perception and expectation of my university. So this Brazilian Higher Education institution is my university. Just to give a background on this analysis, the Brazilian context, there are two main problems in the Brazilian context in terms of higher education. One is the dropout and the other one is retention. I think some of other countries also have these problems, but in Brazil it's very critical. And besides that, we have some very stressful and time-consuming accreditation evaluation like this test, national test called ENADE. And both these dropout rates and this accreditation evaluation, they directly impact the budget of the university, especially if it's a public university as mine. And on the top of that, all the decisions and reports in Brazil at least is basically based on preconcepts or feelings rather than quantitative evidence like data analysis and things like that. So after a while that I was trying to convince my rector and the people from my university to use this automatic analysis, data analysis tool, we finally started to think about using learning analytics at my university. So this work is the initial work to start to think about how to adopt and adapt tools for learning analytics to assist both teachers, students, and also higher level administrative staff on how to conduct and present reports about the university. So initially we followed this Shayla Framework. This framework was developed in a European project, and it says that the initial mapping of the context in higher education institutions should take in consideration these 6 dimensions. The first one is political context, to map the political context, and in Brazil this is critical. So for example, we still don't have a data protection law in place. We should have started to use the law that was proposed by the government this year, but with this coronavirus crisis, it was postponed for next year. So we don't have any regulation regarding the data protection. And there is also a lot of bureaucracy in Brazil, so it's hard to get things moving fast. Other dimensions like identify the key stakeholders, identify the desired change behavior. Engagement strategy, it's very important because it doesn't matter if we implement the tools, but nobody engage with them. So this dimension is very important. And also we don't have capacity, I think, in both terms, in the technical development and also in the pedagogical side to use learning analytics yet. And also we have to develop this monitoring framework for after the learning analytics is in place. So basically we try to address these 6 dimensions in this work. And SHEILA and also Lala Project. Lala is another European project in partnership with some universities in South America. And they have these instruments to analyze these dimensions. And they propose several instruments. I listed here 5 of them, and just highlight this focus group that is the main proposal of this paper. So we already have the results for the surveys with students and staff, but the results that I will present today is only about the focus groups with both students and staff. Okay, these are the groups that we had. Sometimes we didn't reach the high number of participants, so we did the interviews instead of focus group. But in this first table, we can see the interviews and the focus group for students. We have the majority of the focus group were based with students for computer science, but we also have some for humanities. And we also had these focus groups with instructors for both traditional learning settings and online learning. And in Brazil, the teaching assistants are very important in terms of online learning. So we decided to also run a few interviews with teaching assistants, but only in the context of online learning. So then I will present the main findings that we had for each one of these group of staff and students. I will start with the students, and in terms of educational needs, by the way, before present these results, it's important to mention that especially the students, they raise several things that are not completely related to learning analytics, that is like related to education technology in general. So I try to summarize just the findings that are connected with learning analytics. So in terms of educational needs, they think that learning analytics could help to improve the communication with instructors, so between students and instruction. And they said that to do this, mainly two things could be used. One is a simple deadline checking. So they said that if it's possible to have a system to show them when is the next deadline for different courses, it would be great. And also they would like to know that the teachers care about their progress, because they feel that sometimes they are doing the activities, but there is no feedback, so the teachers seems like they don't care. Also about educational resource, so they raise the point to have more diversity of media, but regarding learning analytics, the quality of activities, they said that it will be nice to have something to measure the quality of activities, and also some tool to provide timely feedback for activities. Following the same line, they also said that learning analytics could be used to improve learning experience, and by presenting like statistics about the course for both the whole cohort of students and also for the individual student, and also analyzing aspects that lead to poor learning outcomes. In other words, analyze the student strategies especially over the online courses. And also they point out that learning analytics could be useful to keep them better informed and organized about what is happening in different semesters. Finally, they raised the point that nowadays the teachers just send grade-only feedback. In other words, they just, in the majority of the time, they just put a grade for the students. They don't comment anything. So the students were really wanting to have some early interactive and personalized feedback. So this feedback was highlighted during the focus groups with students. And about concerns that the student had, they had one major concern, that they would not like to be presented with a ranking of achievement. So they said that this ranking scheme could be worse, could provide more worse things than benefits. And they don't remember to have signed any kind of authorization at the university to use their data, but they do sign an authorization when they first get enrolled in the program, but not for specific courses. And however, they don't see any risks about, they trust the university to use their data for educational purpose. Moving to the instructor's perspectives, In terms of educational needs, the instructor thinks that learning analytics could help them to track students' progress and needs, and more specifically trying to identify problems that are invisible or between lines. This issue was a very interesting thing to see in the focus group, because the instructors said that they knew that there are a huge amount of data, especially in the online courses, but they have access to this raw data, but they don't know how to use this data because there is no tool to summarize them and to provide it a dashboard or thing like that. So they have the acknowledgement that this data is there and the information is there, but they don't have access to it. And also, they point out that personalization would be a good thing to do with Learn Analytics. And I just copy a quote of one instructor from the focus group. He said that personalization is something we really wish for, but in classes with 60 students, how do I personalize within the class's dynamics during 4 hours? As much as we want to try to personalize teaching, at the end of the day, the course objectives are too general and we must attend by all. So they want to personalize somehow their classes, but it's hard to do with large cohorts of students. They also think that several data visualization would be good, and they really focus on this data visualization. So I extract a few quotes from them. One of them says that visualizations should be simple, objective, and succinct as possible. The other one says that it should be multimodal and interactive. And the other one was complaining about the amount of data. So what the instructor is going to do with all this data in hand? A spreadsheet just indicating students' time online is useless. It's hard to understand the meaning behind it and infer what it can be done. Just overwhelming the instructor with information might not be the best strategy. So summarizing, they said that simple graphs, word clouds, and clusters of some visualization options would be easy for them to use. And as I mentioned before, they know that the data is there. They also suggested to have some recommendations for themselves, like students at risk, and also recommendation direct to the students on how which actions they can take based on their profiles, which activities better fits each student, or which content can be sent to the student automatically. In terms of ethics and privacy, they have two major concerns. The first one is the risk of excessive intrusion in students' learning routine. So they said that it's important to assure the private space of the students and do not at all expose them publicly. Besides that, they also said that another concern is about this consent that the student should give. And they say that it's important to have a consent per course, not only at the beginning of the program when the students first enrolled at the university. In terms of education support, there are several ones. I just tried, they raised this small sentence here. I tried to translate it to what the community is doing. So they are worried, they want to use Learn Analytics to improve student experience, to understand student needs, to identify students at risk, to improve engagement, and to understand learning strategy from students. So basically, these are the main goals in terms of education support that they raised. And finally, some concerns. They were very worried to increase their workload. So they said that whether using Learn Analytics or not, they have the obligation to take action when they know that the students are at risk. So Learn Analytics could force them to change the method and material. So they are worried about this challenging, and also that is a time-consuming task. Besides that, they highlighted the risk of excessive labeling of students as like students with low achievements. They could be more at risk because of this labeling. Finally, the teaching assistants, just to remind here, we just had interviews with the teaching assistant of online courses. So it's very focused on online courses. They think that Learn Analytics can help them to personalize feedback. And they highlighted that they want to do they want to write some humanized feedback, not only use the automatic feedback in general. And they said that the students are not numbers, they are people. So we need to be kind and establish a dialogue. So this is another interesting thing. They want to do feedback to establish a dialogue. They also would like to somehow enhance online discussion to improve the communication between the teacher assistant and students. In terms of privacy, they said that the university doesn't have any institutional regulation, and they are concerned about that. So they insist that if we're going to use Learn Analytics, the university has to create this regulation beforehand. On the other side, they think that if we are just using the data for educational purpose, there is a very small risk, ethical risk involved. In terms of support, it's pretty much the same of the instructors. And concerns, they also raise the problem to have to do different things with Learn Analytics. So they said that there should be no obligation to act upon all the new information provided by Learn Analytic tools. And also they were worried about how easy is it to meet student needs and preferences. They are very concerned about that as well. Just to conclude my talk, I have this table summarizing everything. In terms of needs, students were very concerned about communication with structure and also educational resources. And this communication issue is similar to the one that the teaching assistant had. So they basically said the same thing regarding communication. And teaching assistant also focus a lot in this personalized feedback. In terms of instructor, they choose a wider number of things in these educational needs. So I just cite 3 of them: track students, personalization / recommendation, and data visualization. In terms of ethics issues, the students don't envision any risk, while instructors are worried about intrusion in student learning routines, and they think the student have to provide a consent per course. And teaching assistant had to said that they think that before use Learn Analytic tools, the university has to develop its own regulations. But overall, the risks are very small. In terms of education support, the student once again talk about personalized learning and to keep them organized and informed, while both instructor and teacher assistant basically is the same set of things. In terms of concern, the students are not concerned about their data. We don't have this culture here in Brazil to be concerned about the data in general. So they think that if it is the university using, they will do a good use of the data. And about instructor, they are afraid with the fact to increase their workflow, and because they are obligated to take action. In both cases, the instructor and the teaching assistants. And the instructor said that they are worried about the excessive labeling of students, while the teacher assistant raised the difficult to meet student needs and preferences. My takeaway is that Brazilian student staff, teaching staff have higher expectation about use of learning analytics, and they don't expect to have very sophisticated resources, so we can use a lot of the tools that are already available. And just to finalize my presentation, we are doing a two ways adoption of learn analytics at my university. One is top down, so we are doing this investigation with focus group and questionnaires, and the other one is bottom up, where we start to use a few tools. So first of all, we are my university is an associated member of Lala community. I invited all the people from Latin America and also from other places who would like to join this community to develop the learn analytics field in Latin America. And at my university, we are already piloting OnTask, that is a tool for personalized learning, personalized feedback. And this other tool for counseling, the name of this tool is Track. It was developed during the Lala Project, and it helps during counseling session with students. And yeah, we just have one more thing, that we are developing this maturity model for learn analytics. So this will help with the monitoring of the learn analytical tools once we adopt it. If you would like to take a very short survey about it help yourself with this. And now, yeah, that is it. I'm now open for questions.